Hey, what are you doing?
Jesus!
So, what are you doing? I'm just trying to make sure that weird Tails doll doesn't show up and mess up my life again. We are in complete lockdown right now. Well, he hasn't shown up recently, so we're probably in the clear, right? Well, I'm reviewing a video game about Tails today, so... Oh no, I'm out. I am not getting hypnotized again. Well, I mean, I was just being careful, but we probably have nothing to worry about. I mean, I'm sure that Tails doll's not going to show up. We haven't seen it in a couple of weeks, so he's right behind me, isn't he? Maybe if I just don't look at him and continue on, he'll go away. So, today we're reviewing Tails' Adventure for the Sega Game Gear, although the title screen of the game says otherwise. So am I getting multiple adventures or just one? Which is it, Miles? So yeah, Sega apparently decided that Tails needed his own game. I mean, the public was just clamoring for one, so it seems like it was a good idea. The plot seems to be that Tails is sleeping on a tree stump one day when, oh no, an airship! Fire! Fire! Yes, run back and forth, Tails. Remember your fire training! One second he's just chilling out with some flicky birds, and the next second he's being attacked by some different birds. Evil birds! Birds that really seem to have it out for the poor little fox. They light the forest on fire and start wreaking havoc on the entire island, with giant robots, airships, and tons of bombs. So, what are their motivations for doing all this? Do they really need a motive, though? I mean, they're antagonistic cartoon birds in a handheld Sonic game. The game deviates from the gameplay you'd expect to see in a Sonic game. It's still a side-scroller, but it's a lot slower, focusing more on puzzles. You go around collecting and using a variety of different items and gadgets, making it feel a little bit like a Zelda game. From the get-go, the controls feel pretty sluggish, and the game is pretty darn tedious. The arc that your bombs go in when you throw them can be annoying, and they often miss enemies, especially airborne enemies. But as the game goes on, you do get used to the controls, as well as find more items and weapons to use. It gets better. The game really isn't like a normal Sonic game. It's not about quickly reacting to enemies, jumping towards them and killing them. It's about taking your time, learning the enemy's patterns, and positioning yourself properly so that you can actually kill them. Now, if this was a regular Sonic game, I'd be pretty against all this, but it's about Tails, so honestly it's fine. It's a spin-off. Now, I may have just mentioned before that this is a puzzle game, but for the majority of the game, the puzzles tend to mostly just be trial and error, or just fairly easy. I can't fly here because there's wind that makes you fall down. So now that you've fallen for the trap once, you know to just jump regularly next time. Good job, you solved the puzzle! Here's a ribbon. It is a puzzle game, but I guess it's more about exploration. Exploring every inch of a level, some of which are fairly maze-like, finding all of the hidden upgrades, and revisiting earlier levels and unlocking hidden areas with your new items. The sense of progression you get from collecting items and accessing new areas is really where the game shines. It's pretty fun. Like, for instance, you start out with these regular bombs, and that's it. But eventually you get remote-controlled bombs, a triple bomb, a little mini robotic Tails that you can control and run around as. There is a slight downside to this, though. By going to Tails' workshop, you can equip different items to Tails. You're only allowed to carry 4 of these items at once, meaning that you have to decide what you want to take into a level before you enter it. This is fine when replaying levels. If you recall there being a wall that you needed a large bomb for, then you know that you need to equip the large bomb. But when entering levels for the first time, it's kind of annoying not knowing what items you should bring. But with that said, this game does seem to be going for a more exploratory feel, so replaying levels is understandable. And also, some of the items are used way more often than others. Like this radio. All it does is change the background music when you press the B button. Kinda pointless. Meanwhile, the Tails robot is used quite a bit. I mean, like, constantly. It is constantly used to solve puzzles and/or progress through certain sections of levels. And also, it's very useful for scouting out parts further into levels. You should always have this equipped. One of the main collectibles in the game are Chaos Emeralds. They only included 6 of them, just like in Sonic 1. Unlike the other items you use, you don't exactly use the emeralds. They're passive upgrades, each one giving you more health and increasing your stamina, allowing you to fly further and higher. The music's passable. It's not really memorable or catchy, but it gets the job done. It's a decent enough soundtrack for the Game Gear, I suppose. The graphics are actually pretty good. For a handheld game of the time, this game doesn't look half bad. It's colorful and there's a fair amount of detail. It's alright. I'll be honest, when this game started, I wasn't expecting much. It was tedious, it was slow, it wasn't very much fun. But as it's gone on, it's really gotten better. This isn't a groundbreaking, earth-shattering, amazing game or anything, but it's not half bad. I know, don't look at him. And there's even some unexpected variety. There are a few water levels where you're in a submarine and it literally turns into a shoot-'em-up. Albeit a very slippery to control and somewhat slow shoot-'em-up, but still a shoot-'em-up, kind of impressive. Now, I've been praising this game quite a bit, but it ain't perfect. You do get used to the controls over time, but they're still not perfect. They could definitely benefit from being slightly more responsive, and switching between items gets quite annoying. An unfortunate casualty to this game being portable is the lack of buttons. Having to pause the game and scroll through your items to change them is fairly annoying. But I mean, I guess it makes sense. The Game Gear doesn't exactly have many buttons on it to choose from. I honestly can't think of an alternative solution that would be better. So I guess I have no choice but to just let it pass. You hear that, Sega? I am being incredibly generous here, letting you get off the hook with this lack of buttons thing. So from here on out, there better not be a single thing wrong with this game. You're hanging on by a thread. When retracting the remote-controlled robot, you have to watch an animation of it going back to Tails. This should really just be instant, or at least faster. It's slightly annoying. God damn it, Sega, you don't listen. Oh geez, a napalm bomb. My god, Tails is really gearing up for some hardcore warfare. I didn't realize the war between the foxes and birds had gotten so serious. Jesus, what must Tails think about Sonic saving all those little birds all the time? Or, well, I guess flickies are pretty much the only birds that Tails isn't at war with right now. Every other bird seems to have it out for him though. Even when you finally come across an enemy of a different species, a giant mole, it turns out that there was a bird inside controlling it. About halfway through the game, I got the Sonic item, which is literally the spin dash, except it's even better. When charging it up, you hover in the air, and anything that touches you gets hurt. It obviously makes you go faster, and it breaks through walls. Honestly, although it is fun, it's kind of broken. This one particular water section is really difficult. Like I mentioned before, the controls are pretty slippery, so avoiding all the projectiles and explosives while maneuvering through these tight corridors is very difficult. I'm less than halfway through and I've already exhausted most of my health. Hell, even if the controls were tighter in these underwater sections, this level would still be pretty hard. And what's worse is that every time you die, you have to go back through the level to get back to this part just to try again. It's just boring busy work. This part of the game just plain sucked. Until I eventually figured out that you're supposed to get this item, which makes your submarine completely invincible. Yeah, this game would definitely benefit from some sort of indication on the world map about which levels you completed or not. Maybe put a star next to a level where you found everything in it. That would help so much. It definitely would have alleviated the annoyance I had in this level. I wouldn't have attempted it so many times, having no idea that there was an item I still needed to find. I mean, this part of the game was really annoying. I had no idea where to go or what to do. All I could do was go through all of the levels that I had already beaten and just hope to stumble into something I had missed or forgotten about. And what it ended up being was really annoying. It was a wall. There was this random wall in the second level of the game. And because I couldn't remember this incredibly nondescript wall, I ended up getting pretty frustrated. You do eventually get an item finder, which tells you if there's items located in the area you're currently in, which is honestly the only reason I ever even found this wall. But it's a pretty late game item, and it's not necessary to beat the game, so it's actually pretty easily missable, which is kind of ironic if you think about it, not like there's an item finder to find the item finder. Oh my god, this is hilarious. Oh my god, this is so funny. It's a fairly realistically designed military boat dropping bombs into the water, and it's full of these cartoon Looney Tunes style ducks. It's so freaking funny. The final few levels of this game are the best in terms of puzzles, the combat, all of it. But there are still some frustrations. It can be hard to see what's a platform and what isn't. And there are these really frustrating pitfalls everywhere that cause you to have to redo platforming bits. Wow, no animation or comedic sound effect when the rock falls on him and kills him. The rock just touches him and bleh! So taking some of the roughness and derpiness out of the way, Tails Adventure is actually a pretty good game. It was a lot better than I expected it to be. The graphics are good and the gameplay is fun, even if it is fairly easy and straightforward. The shoot 'em up levels definitely could have been designed better. Like I mentioned before, the control is very slippery, and this was probably intentional because they are technically water levels, but that doesn't make it fun to control. And also, these sections, for the most part, are very easy. Very early in the game, you find a weapon for the submarine called Spark. It's literally the press the button and all the enemies on screen die instantly button. But the rest of the game is fun, and hell, the final shoot 'em up level is actually kind of decent. It's faster, and your invincibility item just randomly doesn't work anymore. It's not great, but it's better. Until you realize that you can just hug the top of the screen the whole time and no enemies will even come close to hitting you. Well, sometimes you just gotta make your own fun, you know? This game is not perfect, but it isn't half bad. It's a fun little handheld adventure. I really do love it when that happens, when you're expecting a game to be really bad and then you're pleasantly surprised. It's a good feeling. What the hell was that sound? Oh god, I forgot he was back there. Oh god, I looked at him. I gotta run. I gotta run!